Hurricane Center, they are going to do a briefing, as they have been doing now, at about 10 minutes before the hour. They're going to explain their thinking, and Max Mayfield will really bring us up to date on exactly what the thinking is. Let's go ahead and review the satellite sequence here. And you can see the movement, and I think even on this wide one, you can make out that the storm made a little jog back to the left a little bit. Let's go to the real tight one here, and you can really see this. Watch it wobbling around, and now it's back to having a very large symmetrical eye wall, and there we can see the jog kind of going along on that line, and now it looks like it's going to continue up here. This island up here is San Salvador, by the way. It's a very popular resort island there, and they may very well have a very bad situation there happen to them tomorrow. Now, here once again, just in case you're just tuning us in, this is the big news of this late advisory, not unexpected at all, but the details are from Flagler Beach, which is just north of Daytona Beach, all the way down to Florida City, which of course is the south end of metropolitan Miami-Dade County. Hurricane watch in effect as of 11 o'clock, and on Lake Okeechobee, the thinking is that if the storm comes in anywhere from here and down to about there, then Lake Okeechobee is going to get hurricane force winds. And of course, there has a long history of significant problems with hurricanes in Lake Okeechobee dating back to the 1920s, although now there's a levee all around Lake Okeechobee that protects it, and the calculations will be hot and heavy to try and figure out, if the storm looks like it's going to go near the lake, if the levee will hold the water in or not. That's very, very sophisticated modeling now done to be able to determine that based on the direction of the wind. If the wind is coming in from this way and driving the water onto the southwestern part of the lake, will that levee hold, and so forth. So that's going to be an interesting process to see what they do and evacuations that might be required, if any, depending on exactly where the storm looks like it's going to come in, but there's going to be time to do that. And of course, the hurricane warnings continue in effect on down through the Bahamas. All of the Bahamas now under a hurricane warning. All right, we're again just standing by here watching the National Hurricane Center monitor, waiting to see if Max Mayfield comes up. We are expecting him here any minute with a briefing for us. All right, here are the numbers: 22.6 and 72.0, 140 mile an hour winds, moving west-northwest at 13, and there you see it, 385 miles east-southeast of Nassau. Now, you folks have maybe some questions while we're waiting for Max. I know we have a lot of questions for viewers. Did you have some that we can go ahead and do now?
I have one for you, Brian. You mentioned that you're talking about the high-pressure ridge, and you mentioned earlier about some weather-sensing equipment. I wonder if you could go over that again. We all think of the hurricane hunters, the planes that fly right into the hurricane. But there's also some sensors laid out up there, up to the north, aren't there, to detect that high pressure? There's
another plane that Bob Sheets was very instrumental in getting put in service back in his time, and right at the end of his time as the director of the National Hurricane Center, and it's a Gulfstream jet, and it flies at about 43,000 feet, way up high in the atmosphere, and they drop these canisters called drop windsondes out of that jet, not into the hurricane, but out around the hurricane to measure the high pressure. So what they actually did is went north of the storm and dropped these things. Hang on just a second, I can even show you the details of that. Here you see earlier today, this was the pattern. So what it did, where all these green dots are, it went and dropped one of these sensor packages in each one of these locations. You see how many of them there were, and I'm just hearing that ding, and that ding is notifying us that there's an inland hurricane wind watch, essentially a hurricane watch for the inland counties of South Florida, including up around Lake Okeechobee. All right, and in each one of those places, they drop in one of those sensor packages and they measure the pressure. So as this sensor package drops down through the atmosphere and gets to a certain height above the ground, it sends a radio beam back and says, okay, I'm measuring the air pressure now, here's what it is. And then the folks at the Hurricane Center look at that and look and see, how did the computer predict that? And what they found, unfortunately, again, is that the models, the programs that predict the storm to sort of miss Florida to some degree have it wrong, and the ones that are indicating a trend into Florida have it right. And I'm saying Florida, notice, not South Florida, because there still is some divergence up and down the state where the center might come in.
Which is why everybody needs to be prepared. And as I sort through all these emails that are coming in for you, Brian, I'm noticing a lot of the questions have to do with hurricane-proof windows. Sarah Campos says, if I have windows that are supposed to be hurricane-proof, should I board them up, or are they enough?
Well, hurricane-proof windows, if they're what are called impact windows, that's the real word, and they have Miami-Dade County product approval, and all the counties in South Florida use Miami-Dade County product approval, then they will be safe. The issue with these impact windows is if we really have good wind, the debris is going to bounce off the window, but it's also going to dent the window up. And after the storm, you're probably going to have to take, if it's a major storm, you're going to have to take that whole window out of the house, and you're going to have a major construction job. Now, since impact windows came out, we have not had a hurricane. This would be a first test of impact windows. And when I say test, not so much the strength, because that's been tested. They shoot 2x4s at these windows and they bounce off. So that's not the concern. The question is, if you have a house full of windows that are kind of beat up on the outside, then your insurance company is going to have to pay to replace them, and this is going to, there's going to be a lot of rethinking about what to do with these. So the ideal situation is to have impact windows to keep the debris out, and then put shutters over them to keep the windows from getting dented so badly. That's the best combination. One other thing about impact windows is there are two different kinds. One is just a sheet of a material called Lexan, and it's like bulletproof plastic. So it'll stop things from hitting it, and it scratches a little bit. But the other one is a sandwich of glass and essentially Lexan, a polycarbonate. When the stuff hits that, the glass breaks on the outside and maybe even on the inside, but the plastic holds so you don't get anything in the house. But now you have broken glass, then you have to actually turn out to replace the whole window once that happens. And as I said, we haven't had these in houses since we've had these in houses. We haven't had a significant hurricane to see what the aftermath is going to look like, but they will be safe as far as you being in the house.
All right, Brian, thanks. We have so many questions coming in. We want to tell the viewers real quick how to get a hold of you. We're going to be asking you many more of these. We appreciate the time. All you have to do is go to these websites, cbs4news.com or upn33.com. Click on the Ask Brian icon, and you'll be able to put your question in. Follow the simple directions.
We're waiting on Max Mayfield from the National Hurricane Center to bring us his update. We'll have that for you, plus a special extended edition of CBS 4 News at 11 coming up in just a few minutes. Keep it here on your weather station.
UPN Friday. It's a daring assault inside the most dangerous machine the galaxy has ever known. Star Trek Enterprise, UPN Friday at 8, 7 Central.
At Infinity's limited